Okay, letter 14. It looks to be a long one. So hold on to your pants and your seat. Pliny to Titus Aristonus. Salve. Cum sis, when you, it looks like since you are most experienced, peritissimus, that's a superlative, at both of private and public juris, or law, of which part of it is of the senatorial law, senatorium. I desire, you're getting to some purpose now, I'm desiring from you, potissimum, or rather especially, or dare to hear, looks like an if here, if I have erred, error verum, in the Senatu Proximo, looks like in the most recent meeting of the Senate, necne or not so that it will pass by in praeteritum for serum, for it's too late to bring it up in the Senate, I'm guessing. Verum, but ut, so that in futurum, in future, si quid, if there's anything similar, insiderate happens, that erudia, that's passive, means I shall learn. To erudite someone is to teach someone, so passively it means to learn. We have an erudite person in English as someone who is learned. 2. Decays. You'll say, Cur queris, why are you querying for quod what? Debias nosse, what you ought to know. Debias is one of those verbs, takes the infinitive. We have genitive. Priorum temporum, of prior times, the servitus, it's like the servitude or slavery of prior times, as of aliarum artem optimarum, as of other of the great arts. Something to do with them. We'll have to move along and see what it is. Sic etiam. So thus even oblivium. Okay, so oblivium means forgetfulness, or you've forgotten it basically. So even the forgetfulness of senatorial law and of other optimus things, which quandam happened once, it's like olim happened once upon a time or a long time ago, inducts it. We've actually the servitude of prior times has inducted us into ignorance basically of and knowledge of the best arts and even of the senatorial rights and procedures, I'm guessing. 3. Enim. 4. Quotus quisque, for how many people, quisque usually means each one, with quotus means how few of people, each one will be so patient, ut so that valet he will want to discere. Discere is a bit like erudia, they both mean to learn. That quod, what, in uso, what will be used, shall not sit habituris. This form of the future of habio, so what you really won't be using. So if you combine the uso and habituris, not many people want to know, will have the patience or even want to know, will not be of use in the future, or what will be needed to know, something like that. Ad, imperative, ad in English as well. Ad quod, that it is difficult est. Difficult est is one of these est that takes the infinitive. Ad that it's difficult to tenere, to grasp, que accepris, what you've acceperate, what you've learnt or received, nisi, unless you exercise it. So, if you learn something and never use it, you'll forget it. Idaque, and so accordingly, with libertas, which is freedom. Sometimes it's a deified sort of god to them. With reducta, so they've got liberty back. Rudes nos, that's plural. So liberty is deprehended, so liberty back, it catches us or apprehends us as crude or ignorant and inexperienced. So they've got their liberty back, but the things which they've learnt in the past, they've forgot because they haven't used them. Quis, genitive pronoun. Dulcidinine, that's something to do with sweetness. Akenzai, something plural's burning. So cogomore. So it looks like we're burning with the sweetness of it, of liberty. Cogit more. Looks like we're being forced to facere. Cogit also takes infinitives. We're forced to do quaedam, certain things, antiquam, before we, here's the infinitive, before we know them. Okay, so they're burning with the sweetness of liberty, and they're forced to do things which they don't really understand because they haven't exercised them or remembered. 4. Erat autem. So moreover, or however, probably moreover most of the time. Moreover, there was an institutum antiquitas. There was an institution or a way of doing things in the olden times. That from our majoribus, from the ancestors, actually by natu, those who are older than us by birth, non modo, not only with our oribuses, not only with our ears, verimetium, but even with our oculus, with our eyes, and there's our mus of us, we would discerimus, we would learn. In which, quae, soon mocks, facienda ipsi, ourselves, we would be doing these things, facienda is the gerundive, and per vicems, and in turn, we would tridenda, another gerundive, we would hand over these quasdems, these certain things, to the minoribusses. So you learn from your majoribusses and you tridenda it to the minoribus, the things which we have haberamos. 5. Inde, next or then, startum immediately, the adolescents, these are the young man. Stipendis castrine sensibus, blah blah blah, can't speak it but I can read it. By earning their pay in the military camps, they were imbued, bantered, so that by parending, by obeying, imperare duces agere. So they learnt from other leaders, basically, which they followed, and ad suescrant, they become accustomed to do this. So they're learning, and also learning how to become leaders themselves, I'm supposing. Another inde. Then in paturing, when they're about to seek honours, or when they're going about their life, oh God, what have I hit there? By seeking honours, they would add sistaban. Ad means up against, and sisto means stand. So they would stand up against the foribusses, which is the doors of the curia, which is the Senate house. And they were spectators, so they would be watching at the public councils, or the councils of the Senate, antiquam again, before they would be consorts. Con usually means you're taking part of it. Fellow slaves, fellow students, etc. So consorts means they'd watch it first and then take part of it. So it's comparing going into the military to learn from military ways and become a leader, and then for how to become a senator and all these other political things. 6. Suis means it belongs to the nominative. To each one. Cui qui. Some typo. To each person they had their own parent. Pro magistro was a teacher. Or cui to those who non-parents, who didn't have a parent. Quis qui. So to each one who had a parent, they would have a parent as a teacher, or who was to a parent, did not have a parent. Maximus. It looks like they would have some old person, avertus distimus. So especially if they didn't have a parent, they'd have some old person, pro-parent, who would take on the role of a parent, and a parent would take on the role of a teacher. And so 6 is going on. Start with the relative pronoun. Quae potestas. What things were the powers to those referentibusing, to people bringing up or saying things or telling them? What was the right to the sensiabusses? To sensio means to think up something. So what were the rights, or the way about going, bring up things you've thought of? What was the vis to the magistrates? What was the forces and powers of the magistrates? What was the libertas to the ceteris, to the rest of the people, I'm guessing, who weren't in the Senate or magistrates? when they should sedendum, when they should cede on a topic, when they should resist, when they should fight for it. Quod tempus, what time there was, when they should shut up maybe. And what is the modus, was the way of speaking. I'll have to scroll here because we're running out of room. So back to this mumbo jumbo here. What was the distinction? What was the difference in pugnantium of fighting sentiments, of fighting opinions when proposals were in conflict? In which ways to executio to the pride oribuses? Looks like how to follow up things that were proposed earlier, and when something needs to be added or amended, something addendium, and deniquil, in short, and finally, all the morem, all the mores, all the customs and habits of the Senate. Percipiende. So you can see these genus, these types of things, most fidessimum, most truly. All these examples are docubantor, these being taught, and 7. But when when we were juveniles, when we were young men, quidem indeed, fulmus, we were in castris, we were in camps. I suppose there was a lot of fighting, etc. Sed cum suspecta virtus. So it looks like when they were young in the camps, virtue and valour was viewed with a bit of suspicion. Inertia in pretio, strange looking phrase, probably means there wasn't much reward unless you're inert. So don't be active, just sort of slacken off a bit. There was nulla auctoritas, there was not any authority in or with the ducibusses, with the generals or the leaders. And there was nulla veracundia, no modesty or shame to the militibus, the common soldiers. And nusquam, never was there any imperium, there was no leadership. Nusquam was there obsequium, neither was there anyone wanting to follow or obey. Omnia, which means everything, was saluta, it was loose. Turbata, confused. It's probably atqui again. And at quietium, and there was even in contrarium versa, so versa looks like it's post-positive. So things were turned into a bit of confusion and a bit of headbutting maybe. Post-remos, like deniquili, so finally, or in short, magus, more ought to be oblivioscended, should be forgotten into oblivion, than retained, than tenended. Iadem. Capital makes it a little bit weird, that's a pronoun. Same, prospectimus, we did the same. We watched the Curia, the Senate House, but the Curia, the Senate House, was trepidam and elinguam, so there was a lot of fear in it, and people held their tongues. Elinguam probably literally means tongueless, probably. When to dicere, when to speak, quod velis, what you wanted, was adjective, was periculosum, was dangerous, and what knowledge, what you didn't want to say. And when you had to dicere what you didn't want to say, it was miserum esset. So it was pitiable and being forced to say things you didn't want to say. Quid tunc, what then? Potwit disci, that's passive infinitive. What then is able to be learned? And what juvit, what does it please or what does it help to didisc, to have learnt? So what was able to be learnt? What was it useful to have learnt? When the senatus, the senate of declension, ought either to the height of otium, to the height of leisure, or to the height of nefas, was vocarito it was called, and modo only ludibrio, a mockery was it retained. So the senate was still going on. It looked like the emperor must have been up to some nasty tricks, but it's only for mockery or only dolore, to cause grief really, was the senate still going, never for anything serious. Censurate, usually proposals are censurate as well. So often, saipi, proposals of just tristia, grim and sad sort of thing. And we're almost done, so I'll bring up a daily dictionary word. Quotus, from quot, I was right at the beginning. Which, what number, and we saw it with quizque. It says often followed by quizque. How many, how few. So sometimes use a diminutive for few, but this adjective can be used in that way. There's a whole board of male and female nominative, etc. Okay, so yeah, if it's in the past, depends on the verb, if it's the past, present or future. So, senators. Looks like when we're senators, we have the eodem male of the same troubles. We had the same troubles. Now participants of this malorum, of these troubles and evils, per multos annos. Sometimes you get part of it put before the preposition. For many years, we saw these evils and we were participants of them, and tulemus, and we bore them. Quibus, in which was something to do, it's a pronoun again. Ingenia nostra, so our ingenias, our characteristics into posterum, into the future, were also habited, blunted. So they're talking about their characters, and I suppose they've been kept down in fear, so they're now blunted and fracta and broken and contusa. And that's the end of this one.